start their holiday season with us. Thank you to the DoubleTree Hotel. They've been providing a homey meal for us for this event for a long time, so we appreciate that. In the interest of time, we're about 10 minutes late getting started, and also I've done a real disservice to our speaker today. I have invited her to come speak to us, and then a presentation which I know is like an hour-long presentation, I've asked her to condense that to a ridiculously short period of time. So I'm going to be like my dad driving to my grandparents' house. I'm going to be trying to make up time, make up time, make up time. A couple things. Thank you to Exelon Corporation, which is the sponsor for our speaker series for 2019. Today we're not going to be having a raffle in the spirit of, it's better to give than receive. I'm going to be passing around some Salvation Army Angel Tree cards. These are cards where you can purchase a toy, and if you'd like, also an article of clothing for a young child in need. They came to us a little late, so I'm hoping that you all can help us get those fulfilled. Tomorrow, Thursday, is the annual tree lighting celebration in Chelsea Square from 5:30 to 7:30. Stan is going to make his first appearance of the season, and then on Saturday is the 15th annual Breakfast with Santa, and that's going to be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Williams School. In the interest of whipping through time, we're not going to review some of the Chamber's accomplishments of this year and our goals for next year. I'll just throw out some buzzwords to you. Those would be partnership, the Chamber's Charitable Foundation, grants, and capacity building. So hopefully those words will evoke some thoughts, and if you would like some specifics, give us a call or stop by and meet with us. And then for a brief welcome, I'm going to call President Joseph W. Mahoney. Shout it out, Joe.
One. No? It's not working. Is it on? Okay, in the essence of time, Peter, can you hear me? Okay. This time of year, some people refer to me as Santa Claus's brother. Works well. Just a couple of things. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank those that are outgoing directors. And thanks to Rick Brown for coming here and giving something that's extremely important. Okay. Actually, with regards to our sponsors, a couple of things. One is an institution that's been in the city for a number of years, TND, but they don't advertise as much as maybe they should with regards TND, you perhaps got the flyer in the email from us, and Rafael Maris is going to give a little quick introduction with regards to that. But the other thing, and the most important, is our new member from Green Star Herbals. And unfortunately today, am I hearing something?
You're hearing something.
See, my sound processor, everybody thinks it's a hearing aid, but the sound processor picks up sounds from all directions, so I apologize. But the cannabis industry is a very interesting industry in that there are two segments of it, and I don't want to say they're diametrically opposed, but there's the THC, which gives you a rather high, like you've been at Woodstock, for those that ever went there. And the other is the CBD, which is the medicinal effects. And if you've ever seen what the CBD can do to an individual, you'd be blown away. The effects of that. But I'll let Rick explain that. And again, thank you for coming. Have a great holiday season. And don't forget the Santa coming and the tree lighting on Thursday. You'll be getting more. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Before we have some business here today, which is to elect our new directors for their future terms. But before we do that, we must first thank our outgoing directors, whose terms expire at the end of this year. Some of these folks have served the Chamber as board members for decades, and our hope is that they're not going to totally relax and enjoy their term off, but perhaps be vibrant members of some Chamber committees. And we invite you, if you're interested in becoming a committee member, to get in touch with us as well. So could we ask the following people to stand up and receive accolades? Alan Alpert, Bruce Locke, Dennis Cataldo, Alice Levino, and now, as a final act, can I ask past President Alan Alpert to conduct the election of our directors?
Big break.
Thank you, President Joe, and thank you very much, Rick, for asking me to do this, the roster for our incoming officers. It's with bittersweet memories that I am leaving the board because of our newly enacted bylaws that now has term limits, so that's why Bruce, who has served well over 30 years on the board, and I have been a board member for the past 44 years, are coming off the board. So it's great that I'm able to bring up the names that the nominating committee has come forward with, as well as we have some proxy ballots. So the members who are going in for a second two-year term, I'd like to ask to please stand. Maureen Foley from Caldwell Hotels, Romero Fernandez from Shop and Compare Supermarkets, Bob Elkanada from Shore Collaborative, Attorney David Midland, Craft and Hall, and Effie Hamarillo. I think Effie is, no, Effie's in here. Members are returning for a second year if everyone votes for them. And new members that are coming on the board, Paul Nowicki from Chelsea Housing Authority, and Beth McDougal from McDougal Architects. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the...
So moved.
So moved by past President Peter. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, congratulations.
Welcome, Paul. We'll be in line to be
See,
president soon.
whipping through. Don't let anybody second that. Next, may we please have the brothers for this event for their minutes at the mic, which is one of their sponsorship benefits, and that's Rafael Manes from the Neighborhood Developers.
Thank you, Rich. I will keep it really brief. job.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I have to thank you for the opportunity to speak and Joe for introducing us before. T&D is the local community development corporation in Chelsea. We develop affordable housing, we help people improve their financial mobility, and we help improve neighborhoods. And we can't do this work alone, we wouldn't do this work alone. There's many organizations and agencies in Chelsea that are helping us do that. Many of them are members of the chamber. And at the risk of leaving some out, I'll try to thank some of them here right now. The City of Chelsea, the Chelsea Housing Authority, Green Roots, Bunkerville Community College, Chelsea Collaborative, Chelsea Bank, Metro Credit Union, Roca are all very close partners of ours, and we couldn't do our work without them. You received an email last week from the Chamber describing our work a little bit and introducing you to an opportunity that you may not be aware of. It's a little tax credit trick that exists in Massachusetts. If you donate $1,000 or more to our organization, you will get half your money back from the state. Doesn't matter if you're paying taxes or not, half of the money comes back. So I encourage you to look at the sheets that are on your chairs, and if you're interested, feel free to reach out to us and find out more about T&D or the tax credit opportunity for me or Heather. If you can raise your hand, happy to talk to you. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch and the event.
Thank you, Raphael, and thank you, T&D, for sponsoring this event. As a former financial planner and certified financial planner, tax credits are hard to come by. So if you're in the market for some tax credits, please give a read to what was left on your chairs. Next, our gold sponsor for today's luncheon is also our newest chamber member, so we get to welcome him in 2 different ways. Please welcome Tom Morey of Green Star Herbals.
How you doing, everybody? Really appreciate us having the opportunity to be here today. I wanted to give you a little quick update on where we are in the process. If you didn't know, we're taking over the former King Arthur's building on 200 Beecham Street. Very excited about opening up our business there. We believe it's going to be a great destination for Chelsea. A lot of people to tell people the benefits of Chelsea, some of the attractions of Chelsea. We think it's going to be a win-win for both us and the city. We recently received our provisional license, thank you, and we're looking forward to beginning demolition on the site very soon. We're going to actually take the building down and we're going to build a brand new facility there, about 4,900 square feet. I want to introduce a couple people to you. Mike Allen is the Chief of Security for Green Star. He's worked very closely with the local police authority, the chief. And the other is Nappy Brito. He's the Director of Operations for Green Star. But we're here to tell you that we're very anxious to do business here. We're going to have a professional run organization. It's going to be something that the city of Chelsea can be proud of. We also want to partner with Chelsea. Anything we can do in any charitable ventures or any volunteer work, all our employees will be willing to participate in something of that nature. Anything we can do to help promote business in Chelsea, flyers, lists of attractions where we can give out to our potential customers, we want to do that as well. One of our other locations, we work with the local people, and they're going to, local artists are going to hang their art within the dispensary. So we're open to any and all ideas, and the most important thing is we want to be here to partner with you, be a great neighbor, and make this a success for both us and the community.
Thank you. Unless I've done my math wrong, I think we made it 5 or 6 minutes. So thank you again to Green Star our herbals. So now moving on, it's time to introduce our speaker, who, as I said, I've shortchanged. And I'm going to continue that by shortchanging her, her bio and her impressive credentials. But some things you really should know are that before she fulfilled her lifelong childhood dream of becoming a cannabis control commissioner, she was an assistant attorney general for Massachusetts for 7 years. She helped develop the first comprehensive report on human trafficking and worked with law enforcement to draft the state's landmark human trafficking law. She led the AG's Office of Open Government, which was responsible for the enforcement of the open meeting law. So city councilors, board and commission members, eyes are on you. Ms. McBride is a graduate of Holy Cross and Suffolk University Law School, and she's been very accommodating in agreeing to come speak to us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Commissioner Britta McBride.
Are there any city councilors or other public officials here?
How many commissioners and
I am now getting a bit of my own medicine, being on a public body that I used to enforce the open meeting law, and now I have the joy of having to comply with it. And it's not that fun sometimes. I'll start here. So thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and address you. And I'm going to try really hard not to sound like an auctioneer. I'm going to be speaking so fast, but I do want to leave time for questions because I think that's where the best conversation often happens, particularly on this subject. So good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am Britta McBride, as Rich just said, and I was appointed, along with my four colleagues, to the Cannabis Control Commission 2 years ago. Sorry. In my case, I was appointed by Attorney General Maura Healey, and my colleagues are each similarly appointed, in some cases jointly, by the Governor, the Attorney General, and the Treasurer, and in some cases by one individual constitutional officer independently as required by statute. Each of us holds a seat that represents an area of proficiency as directed by the statute, and in my case, it's public safety. I have had the great honor of being able to work actually with your Chief Kais on many issues. He's been a wonderful ally prior to taking this position, but certainly since becoming the commissioner, he has been just fantastic in terms of information and providing me with feedback along with several other chiefs in Massachusetts. The statute also directs that there be a commissioner representing public health, business and finance, government regulations, and social justice, respectively. In the 2 years since we were appointed, we have been busy building an agency and building the structure of a responsible, equitable, sustainable, durable cannabis industry here in Massachusetts. Our agency now employs about 65 people, including our licensing staff, our investigators, with backgrounds across an array of disciplines, including law enforcement, food safety, agriculture. We have a toxicologist on staff. We have a research team, and so we are a really vibrant and growing agency. 1 year ago, we also assumed oversight of the medical marijuana program that was prior to that housed in the Department of Public Health. We provide support to over 60,000 active registered patients and 6,000 caregivers. And just last week, we completed our relocation to our headquarters, our new headquarters in Worcester, although we do have a permanent satellite office that we are maintaining in Boston as well. So having that presence throughout the state is really meaningful to us, not just from a symbolic perspective, but from a practical one as well, because in the coming years, cannabis commerce will be integrated into more communities. How it looks is going to depend a lot on the community. 1 year ago, on November 20th, 2018, the first 2 adult-use cannabis retailers opened their doors in Northampton and Leicester. And today, 33 retailers are operational throughout the state. In the first year, we saw $393.7 million in gross sales of cannabis products statewide. And that was as we were building incrementally to 33 stores. And we do not anticipate that pace to slow. Altogether, the commission has licensed 227 marijuana establishments, and that's across multiple licenses, which I'll talk about in just a second. And we have nearly 7,000 active marijuana establishment agent registrations. That means employees. So this industry is employing thousands of people. Now, are likely aware at this point, communities may make decisions about whether and how this industry fits into their community. For instance, it's my understanding that Chelsea has limited the number of retail operations to 4, is that accurate? And has made decisions about zoning, we were talking about earlier. Last month, the commission granted its first provisional license in Chelsea. I believe that that is accurate to Green Star Herbal. But for your city, our application database reflects applications that are representative of 8 retailers, 3 cultivators, 1 product manufacturer, 4 transporters, and a partridge in a pear tree. Importantly, that does not mean that all of those applications are even close to ready for prime time. They're in varying stages of completeness, that all of them are going to receive the municipal approvals that are necessary under the statute and under the regulations in order to operate, and that the city will enter into host community agreements with any or all of them. In fact, given the limits that the city has imposed, the number of retailers we know, not all of them are going to be approved because you've limited it. But I call out these numbers because it indicates the level of interest, and similar stories like this are playing out across communities in Massachusetts. Our regulations foster an industry, as I said before, that is responsible, equitable, and sustainable, and ultimately durable. So not every community is comfortable with legalized cannabis. I think that's a great understatement. There are many that are very comfortable with it. There are many that are coming to it. And a part of that is having these conversations. The regulations that the Commission has put into place enable those communities that decide to move ahead to do so with confidence, because our regulations foster a responsible industry by placing a premium on safety and security. They foster an equitable industry by making equity a priority in regulations as well as our policy and programming. And they foster an industry that will be poised for success if and when federal legalization occurs. I think that it is really a when rather than an if. Building an industry that is responsible starts with licensing. The Commission currently issues 8 types of adult use licenses: cultivation, product manufacturing, retail, independent testing laboratories, micro businesses, craft marijuana cooperatives, third-party transporters, and research. We also license vertically integrated medical marijuana treatment centers. And earlier this fall, we authorized the establishment of 2 new types of licenses for delivery and social consumption, in other words, cannabis cafes. Those license types are not yet live. Those have some work that still needs to happen before they come live, but I can touch upon that a little bit more in a bit. Our licensing process is involved. It involves an initial paper part, which has 3 parts: an application of intent, which tells us who you are; a background check, which tells us whether you're suitable for licensure; and a management and operations profile, which tells us whether you understand our regulations and have considered how you are going to implement them and comply with them. And this is the basis for provisional or initial licensure. After provisional licensure and before final licensure is the inspection phase. And this is the boots on the ground observation and application of our regulations. Depending on the scale of the operation, it usually entails at least 2 inspections, and oftentimes more. Only after these inspections are completed and to our satisfaction, business granted, what we call a commence operations. So what are our inspectors looking for both during the licensing process and afterwards? Our inspectors are looking for compliance with security requirements. So Mr. Allen, I'm sure, can speak a little bit about this from the perspective of the operator. But this includes provisions like, just so you know, I'm going to make this available to Rich so that he can circulate it. I know that it's a little bit hard to see in the back of the room. So our security requirements, and this is not the entire list, but it's a snapshot, include things like video cameras in any area where marijuana is kept, and entrances and parking lots, locked limited access areas where marijuana is kept, and that is limited to specifically employees that are identified as having access to those areas, an ID check and verification procedures, perimeter security systems and backup systems, compliance with seed to sale tracking, which is an incredibly important part of our regulations and of our statute. That tracks every bit of marijuana that is now sold legally in this state, from its seed all the way through to a point where it is either in flower form or in product form walking out the door of an establishment. And recently we added requirements for secure cash handling and transport, and Chief Hyde was actually instrumental in helping to put those recommendations together. Now, why is security important? It's important because of neighbor and community confidence. This is still largely a cash business in many cases. At last checked, fully half of our operators were cash only, and several had ATMs on site. And we have to acknowledge that this is still a federally illegal substance. It has commodity status on the illicit market, and therefore we take precautions. We want to make sure that communities feel safe and feel welcoming about having these businesses in their communities, and part of that is building confidence through some fairly comprehensive security requirements. Our inspectors are also looking for compliance with labeling requirements, including most recently a requirement that all additives be listed on label, and also the inclusion of graphics. Now, why is labeling important? It's important because this is still federally a product that is not regulated at the federal level. We have no federal standards. There is no FDA here. One of the selling points of legalization was providing safe, tested cannabis. This labeling part is a consumer-facing part of that. And as you may be aware, maybe following the news, we have a lot of concerns right now about vaping. There's a vaping crisis going on. And I would expect to see our commission take some additional steps with regard to labeling, as well as some other additional provisions in short order in the ensuing months ahead. And we are keeping a really close eye on how vaping is playing out both nationally and certainly here in Massachusetts. So key in the labeling is the labeling check that our inspectors do is confirm that all products include statutorily mandated graphics indicating that this is a product that contains THC and is dangerous for children. And the graphics are exceedingly important because first, it's a warning, and second, because it's a way to identify a legal product. So to give you an example, this is not just something that would appear necessarily on the outside of a package. If we have an operator that is producing a gummy, an edible, this has to be imprinted on each individual gummy as well. So, again, these are comprehensive requirements that we are trying to ensure does all of the multiple things we need for it to do, one of which is really to be able to differentiate a legal product from an illegal product. Our inspectors are also looking for compliance with packaging requirements that include opaque child-resistant packaging, can't have any cartoon characters or other images that are attractive to children on the packaging, and no packaging that looks like an existing food product. Earlier on in legalization, in the first states that legalized, there was sort of a smattering of people who were trying to put their things up like Pop-Tart, right, or with a Kit Kat bar. And that is a big no-no. It's not only Massachusetts, but really across all of the states that have legalized. This has become a fairly common regulation to have on the books. And our inspectors are looking for compliance with marketing requirements that include no visibility of marijuana products from the exterior of an establishment, no cartoon images, so no Joe Camels are allowed, advertising that indicates a reasonable belief that the audience seeing the ad is 21 or older, and this goes for sponsorship of events as well, and that websites need to verify age. And that's in addition to a whole, again, that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of our regulations. All of these requirements, security, labeling, packaging, marketing. It's just a snapshot of some of the operational requirements that retail marijuana establishments must comply with to open and to remain open. And we also have operational requirements for cultivation product manufacturers. I think all in all, we have something along the lines of 110 pages of regulations on the adult use side and an additional 100 on the medical use side. So our inspection staff does scheduled and spot inspections. We look in the corners, we speak to the staff, and we follow up if there are deficiencies. We set really high standards, and it's that high standard that has enabled us to manage implementation and legalization well, I believe. But that high standard comes at a cost to operators, and I'm sure that the folks who reach out can probably talk to that. This is a business that it's expensive to get into. So as business people, you're familiar with the concept that costs associated with operating a business can be a barrier to entry. So we have made it part of our mission, and indeed it is mandated as part of our enabling statute that the commission endeavor to lower barriers to entry and provide technical assistance for people who come from identified areas of disproportionate impact, which includes Chelsea. In this way, we're trying to create an equitable industry starting at the ground floor. And there are two primary ways that equity has been built into our regulations, but really the prioritization of equity has been marveled throughout our policies. So the first is economic empowerment prioritization, which provides priority review of licensing applications where applicants hail from or have been involved in fostering economically beneficial policies in a particular city or town, and social equity participants. The social equity program was established particularly to encourage participation by individuals whose lives have been impacted specifically by the criminalization of cannabis. So individuals who went to jail, or people who have been married to, or are the children of individuals who went to jail. Past convictions can very clearly be a barrier to access to jobs and avenues of economic betterment. The social equity program offers curricula and assistance that focus on 4 tracks. The entrepreneur track for individuals who want to own and operate a marijuana establishment, a core track for individuals who want to work in management of an operation, entry and re-entry, and ancillary, which is for individuals who operate businesses that want to work with establishments. And I would just add that here I'm talking about it in the context of social equity, but ancillary businesses are critically important to this industry, and I would highly encourage anyone that has a business like an HVAC business, right? Someone who does signs, architecture, people who do graphic design. These are all services that are needed by this industry, and the ability to carve out a niche there and really come to really create expertise is something that is very beneficial to folks who not only, you don't have to be in this industry to be benefiting from the existence of this industry in the Commonwealth. So in the social equity program, we currently have our first cohort of 143 individuals. And in addition to our priority and programmatic elements, we are also introducing 2 new license types that create opportunities to potentially lower barriers to entry. And that's delivery and social consumption. So delivery is what it sounds like. It would allow the delivery of marijuana products directly to residences, as it's been allowed for years on the medical use side. License type is not without controversy. But we know that illegal delivery services operate currently, blatantly, out in the open. All you have to do is go to Yelp and check it out. They get reviews. It's kind of crazy, actually. They're right next to medical delivery, authorized medical marijuana delivery services exist right next to illicit activities right there. Yes. Regulated delivery provides an avenue for illegal operators to go legal. It provides a license type with lower overhead, and it has been structured to allow those individuals who qualify as either economic empowerment applicants or social equity program participants to have exclusive access to this license type for a period of at least 2 years. And that again, is trying to make sure that we are integrating the mandate to create an equitable industry right at the inception of this industry in Massachusetts. So this is a little bit more information about delivery and the limitations. Our regulations include abundant security measures that are an extension of storefront retail, including the use of body cameras on delivery personnel, reporting in commercial vehicles, again, seat-to-sale tracking, delivery limits, signature requirements, and GPS monitoring. Also, significantly, deliveries may only be made to individuals who have been pre-verified as 21 years or older prior to purchase. We have also authorized social consumption licenses, which would operate initially as a pilot program for 2 years, though those are still down the road a ways because there are legislative changes that need to happen to allow municipalities to opt into allowing social consumption. Initially, it would be available to 12 municipalities. In preparation for the day when social consumption arrives, however, we have established regulations that place limits on sales, require diversion plans, prevention plans, require consumer education on the effects of marijuana, and require alternative transportation plans tailored to the region. That last part's really important to me because I will level with you. I believe that operating under the influence is a major concern. It is actually my biggest concern. I've been pretty outspoken as a single commissioner, and I am here speaking this part, little caveat. This is me speaking as one commissioner, not on behalf of the commission. But I've been really supportive of legislation to make changes to our OUI laws, and social consumption makes me a little bit nervous. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that it means that I'm keeping my eye on the ball, and I'm going to encourage other people to do the same. The commission as a whole, the commission as a whole has taken steps to improve policies that are intended to educate and prevent OUI, both with regard to new licenses, these new licenses like social consumption, and across all licenses. And we need to stay on top of that by training employees, working with industry to promote responsible practices, and working across government to communicate about the laws and about the impacts of OUI, and to ensure that law enforcement has the training and the resources that they need in order to carry out their responsibilities. So what this is actually an insert that we worked with AAA, the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, and the Commonwealth Dispensary Association to put together. And these have been inserted in the CDA members, but anytime they do a retail transaction, they're inserted in those bags. But I use this as an example. This is really a concept for what I think we should be doing across the board, and where I think the commission is likely going with regard to just messaging. At any touch point where we have consumers, we're going to be putting these messages out about what the laws are, and making sure that we are taking steps to provide resources so people can avoid getting behind the wheel of a car, and so they understand what the effects of marijuana are going to be on them, depending on things like the type of consumption, food consumption, and then those types of issues. So finally, the Commission is committed to putting into place regulations and policies that create the foundation for a sustainable industry. We lead the nation in environmental and energy standards for an industry that is notoriously energy hungry, and we're very proud of that, and that's been identified nationally by other states that are now coming online with legalization or looking to our energy standards and what we're doing. And that's something that's going to be evolving because this industry is in a place where trying to find a fit for sustainable energy sources is something that's really kind of moving forward as the industry evolves. So too are those reusable energy options. And so it'll be really interesting in like the next years to figure out how do those reusable energy resources kind of come into play specifically for this industry. So finally, what I want to leave you with is that the Commission is committed to putting into place regulations and policies that by durable, I mean positioning our licensees to be able to withstand the shift to federal legalization and the changes that may come as a result of it. We are proud that we have adopted regulations that are viewed by many states coming to legalization now as a gold standard. But the Commission writ large is also the first to admit that we have a lot of work to do. For example, cannabis research is badly needed, and we need to do more to drive that. There are a lot of things that need to change at the federal level in order to make sure that access to research can move forward, but that is one place where advocacy is needed, and we need to all be pushing forward on that. We need to be thinking hard about things like potency and working with people in public health and industry to have candid conversations about whether and what limitations on potency might be appropriate. And we need to foster policies that enable greater access to banking and traditional, safer sources of funding, among others. So again, thank you for letting me come and address you today. I'm happy to take any questions. Have holidays.
So I'm sure there are questions in this room. This is my second time seeing this presentation. And every time I hear things that I didn't think I'd ever hear in a cannabis presentation, talking about technical assistance, the environmental impacts, thinking about that. So, Mark, should we start with you? Because I know we talked earlier, I know you have a question.
Yeah, I'm in recruitment staffing business. It's a question that gets asked a lot. Some companies go with it, some companies don't. It's more about making drug testing.
Yep.
Where do you see this sort of that story going?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is it's a complex issue insofar as because the federal legality, it creates a dynamic where if you, for instance, have a contract, right, with a federal entity, and that really could be a hospital, right? I mean, if you are receiving Medicaid funds, right? I mean, like, you are in a different position than somebody that doesn't, right? And so I think a lot is really going to depend on what happens again at the federal level. But here in Massachusetts, there is legislation that's working its way through the State House right now. I believe that it was filed by Senator Lewis, I want to say. And it's to address and basically hold harmless people who are making the choice to consume, right, for whatever reason. I mean, it is legal here in Massachusetts. If you could get fired for having a glass of wine, right, I mean, people, it's shocking. So, I mean, I think that there's, things are sort of, there's a tension, but I think things are moving ahead, and I think we'll end up seeing an attempt at some protections there and more guidance for employers, quite frankly. That's something where the commission can weigh in, but we want there to be more than just us saying, oh, it should be something, right? I mean, there probably does need to be a change, a legislative change.
Is there a timeline?
So that legislation is currently living and breathing, and it's working its way through the process on Beacon Hill. I suspect that this is an issue that it touches many, many people, and it touches many different industries, right? And so I think that there is going to be a human cry to really try to resolve that and figure it out in short order. But I have no way of knowing what the legislation ultimately will do with it. But it is an identified issue that I think does require some resolution. I think there are people that are working towards that.
I was saying, speaking of legislature, I just noticed that our state rep, Danny Ryan, standing in the back of the room. Thank you for coming, and direct all your questions to him.
I was just leaving.
With regards to the environmental impact, I mean, these facilities are simply electrical needs, heating, and all that, and then also for water. And at your level, do you see anything relative to the use of requiring solar application on roofs, and then the reuse of water?
Yeah. Those are when I talk about technology is sort of the moving ahead, and as the industry is developing, so are those sustainable energy options. That's exactly what I'm talking about. One of the issues that we come across, if you talk to folks who are in the industry, and I think that there are folks in the room who probably answer this far better than I, but if you do things like, for lack of a better way to say it, just simplify, if you mess with the lighting, you know, if you also are messing with your lighting density or something like that, where you're cultivating, and these are indoor, you know, largely, right, usually over 6 or 7 applications for outdoor roads or outdoor roads in Massachusetts, but by and large, when you're cultivating in Massachusetts, it's not like an Oregon where it's all outdoors. You're doing it indoors, and so there is a lot of there's lighting that's required there, right? And if you mess with that lighting, you're messing with the product. You are creating a product that is different than what I think many growers want to produce and what many consumers want to consume. So there's sort of, you're on a knife's edge there, right? Anything that you do to kind of change that formula can have an effect on the product, and how do we sort of address that issue? So I think that, you know, we do things like certainty. For instance, if operators want to use something that is going to be above what we kind of set as our standard, they have to file for a waiver with us, right? And they have to certify that they have had an engineer look at, you know, the lighting, and that they're going to offset it in another way. And so there are these sort of, you know, we're trying to put together kind of a puzzle to enable there to be that type of movement towards those resources, while also identifying it from an industry perspective, and listening to what they're saying to us in terms of production and what the
Can you talk a little bit more about banking and financial regulation and how you guys are thinking about that, operators are thinking about it in the state?
Yeah, so right now, we have 3 financial institutions that are making this industry, and I love them, and they're intriguing because they have found a way, right, to sort of look at the federal piece of it, which essentially says, like, you can't take this money because, you know, these are proceeds that are federally illegal. You can't deposit this in the Federal Reserve. You need to figure out a way at the state level to be able to do that if you're one of these banks. And so these are state chartered institutions that have decided that they can provide accounting and can work with the operators to put into place the pieces to make sure that, you know, the money is identified the right
So
way.
are all the operators using these only 3 financial institutions in Massachusetts?
That's my understanding. And there's no requirement that you be banked. That's another thing, right? Which is what is nerve-wracking for me from the public safety perspective, because that means if you're not banked, you got a lot of cash. I mean, we talked about $393.7 million in product sales. That's a lot of free cash hanging out there. So I think that by and large, and I mean, I don't know if the folks from Research want to speak to this at all. I think that by and large, people have identified that they're going to use one of these financial institutions. And more, yeah, as those institutions have gone forward, I think other financial institutions that are state chartered have looked at that and said, okay, maybe we can start to think about this too. Let's talk to our board of directors and figure out what we need to do in order to make this happen. And it's not unlike communities, right, that kind of burst out of the gates on this and said, oh, you know, we're going to allow for retailers to be here. A lot of communities looking at those places and going, how did you do that? All right, let's see, maybe we can figure this out. It's a similar kind of thing. But at the federal level, there are pieces of legislation that are pending. One is the SAFE Act, Safe Access to Banking, that has gotten the support of a majority of attorneys general in states, whether they have legalized or not, but certainly in states that have legalized, including our own attorney general, Indy Healy, signed on to a letter to Congress saying, you need to do this. And it doesn't matter kind of what side of the ledger you fall on in terms of support for legalization or opposition to legalization. That is really about providing safe options for folks who work in this industry, which in our state, thousands of people, right? Folks who operate in this industry and don't want to have free-flowing cash just hanging out in their stores. And it starts to, kind of build that really important infrastructure for when federal legalization finally does happen. So it looks positive that that piece of legislation could go. I mean, of course, this Congress.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you very much. So, normally in our wrap-up, we usually ask our speakers to draw a raffle ticket, which we don't have. Also, I just realized that I never sent around those angel tree cards. They're sitting out on the front registration table. So on your way out, if you'd like to take a card and provide those gifts, please stop by there. But we do have a thank you gift for our speaker, and this always makes me nervous because I know it's under the $50 level, but different organizations have their different rules. But it's we can. It's already been generously donated back. It's a gift card to the Chelsea Station restaurant. So thank you. We'll make very good use of this. And thank you, Dudley. You don't have to quit. Please come back to Chelsea.
I love Chelsea. Actually, it's like a side note. I grew up with my dad in a tiny little sailboat that we moored at Admiral's Hill for like my entire childhood. I spent many summer nights with that teeny tiny I live just north of here. I drive through Chelsea every day on my way into the city. And if I could name one product, we have a great cheese guys is just, he's outstanding. He and I don't necessarily always see eye to eye on everything, but we see eye to eye on a lot of things. And he has been, as I said before, a phenomenal ally. And so I really appreciate him. And if there's anything that I can do, if folks have questions that you want to ask here, you want to follow up with me, we have business cards here, please reach out to me. This is my info, but reach out to me, ask me questions.
Thank you. So we're going to wrap up. If we could have our current and future board members come up for a couple of photos. And everyone have some great, happy holidays, regardless of what you celebrate, even if it's just Festivus for the rest of us. Enjoy the season.